All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to listen to us. And as always, we welcome any feedback, suggestions, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. There's an old quote by famed author Augustine O.G. Mandino that reads, "Don't let your success of today lay you into complacency for tomorrow, for that is a worse form of failure." Which brings us into the review for the Andy Ruiz Jr. and Anthony Joshua rematch for the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, on our last broadcast, we picked Andy Ruiz Jr. to win the rematch, and we thought we gave a thorough and detailed explanation as to why. We also talked about the things that Anthony Joshua could do to improve his chances of winning the rematch and regaining his title. Now, a funny thing happened after we posted the last broadcast. Andy Ruiz Jr. weighed 18 pounds more than he did in the first fight. Let me say this again. Andy Ruiz Jr. weighed 18 pounds more than he did in the first fight, tipping the scales at 283 pounds, up from 265. Now, what is even sadder about that is he had an entire training camp to prepare for this fight. Compare that with the first fight where he really only had, 3 or 4 weeks notice? I mean, very short notice. And there's an old saying that if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. And Andy Ruiz clearly stayed ready because obviously, which brought us to the rematch, you having one of the greatest upsets ever in heavyweight championship boxing history. And to show up 18 pounds more, what were you eating? In reports watching the Zone broadcast, they stated that his trainers wanted him in the gym, I believe about 6 months before, or they wanted him to have a full 6 months training camp. It was stated that Andy Ruiz showed up 2 months later than what his trainers wanted, only ended up getting a 4-month training camp. Now, the question that always goes into the 4 months of training camp, what were you doing? But I'm also of the firm belief, being that I'm into physical fitness and, watching what I eat. There's an old saying that you can never out-exercise a bad diet, or you can never exercise out of a bad diet. Clearly, you gaining 18 pounds, what were you doing? What were you eating? Were you putting the same, clearly it was something with your diet. Were you putting in the same effort inside the gym? Clearly to show up 2 months after the fact, no you weren't. Or did you blow up a lot between when that first fight to when you went back to training camp? Did you just blow up a lot and the 18 pounds is basically some of the weight that you lost during training camp? So these are some questions that can be asked. But we talked about how Andy Ruiz Jr. had fast hands. Still has fast hands. But when you weigh 18 pounds more, you become a little less mobile. You become more stationary. Your footwork isn't the same. You compare that with Anthony Joshua, who lost 10 pounds. And we talked about this in our last broadcast, that Anthony Joshua looks like he had lost some weight, lost some of his muscle, looked leaner, which indicated issues with stamina, because obviously the more muscle you have, the more oxygen that the body requires. So becoming leaner clearly showed, okay, I need to improve my cardio and my stamina because it wasn't the best during that first fight. And while Andy Ruiz Jr. showed hunger for something else, obviously food, Anthony Joshua showed a hunger to regain his title. And this is not the first time in boxing history that this has happened, and we're going to go into recent history that the same thing has happened, where a person who has claimed the championship via a heavy upset as an underdog promptly lost a title due to their own complacency. Now, I give Anthony Joshua all the credit in the world. I stated in the first fight, or a way to improve on the first fight, that Anthony Joshua would have to jab and utilize his jab. And I felt that Anthony Joshua utilized his jab. I mean, a nice popping jab, a hard jab. I mean, just stuck it in the face, snapping Andy Ruiz's head back, throwing a right hand on top of it. And let me say this about Andy Ruiz Jr. He definitely has a chin. I think that if other heavyweights took the punches that Andy Ruiz Jr. took, they would have hit the canvas at least one time. And he has a good chin. Remember, he has that short, thick neck, so he takes punches well. He has kind of that short face, that round, short face, on top of that thick neck. Some might say no neck, and I don't say that to disparage him or to insult the man. That's just his physical body type. That maybe that would allow him to take punches well, because he definitely took the punches well. Anthony Joshua jabbed through the right hand. I mean, you saw the cloud of sweat flying off of Andy Ruiz Jr.'s head being snapped back. You clearly saw the swelling on the face, clearly a product of the jabs. I thought that Anthony Joshua did a great job of tying him up on the inside, which I mentioned in the last broadcast. When Anthony Joshua was hurt in that third round, he didn't make any attempt to tie up. So definitely changed up his strategy. I thought he fought a tactically brilliant fight, jabbing, utilizing footwork. Now, before any Mexican fans want to get up here and tell me, well, he ran all night, bro, damn all that. This is boxing. It's not a tough man competition. And I know towards the end of the 12th round, Andy Ruiz started getting frustrated and was kind of motioning Anthony Joshua to stand there and trade with him. Folks, this is boxing. This is not a tough man competition. So Anthony Joshua, I thought, stuck to his game plan. He jabbed, tied him up once he went on the inside. He didn't allow Andy Ruiz Jr. to do the most damage on the inside, which is where he did his damage in the first fight. And sometimes when you lose, that changes your whole personality. Now, if you remember Anthony Joshua before the first Ruiz fight, or going into the first Ruiz fight, very clean cut, hair, always had a nice little haircut, hair shaped up. In this fight, this man didn't have a shape up, nothing, hairline, he ain't care. He ain't had a shape up or nothing. I mean, he was serious and focused about regaining his title. And so I give Anthony Joshua all the credit in the world to fight a tight, disciplined fight. Now, really, I gave him 10 rounds out of that fight. I gave him 10 rounds of 2, much in line with the other scorecards. So I gave the guy 10 rounds. That's basically jabbing, utilizing distance, and creating distance. Now, the other thing I'm going to give Anthony Joshua credit for is fighting a disciplined, tight fight. What I mean is, there were parts in that fight where he wanted to engage with Andy Ruiz. Maybe he figured he had him hurt. A couple of times he landed the hard straight right hand. He saw the sweat cloud flying off Andy Ruiz Jr.'s face and head area, and he wanted to kind of jump in there and try to finish the guy off. But he knew, let me take a step back. He collected himself. He didn't allow himself to get drawn into the heat of Andy Ruiz's passion, which is where Andy Ruiz wanted to fight, on the inside. And I love that Sergio Moro was even saying the same thing on commentary, and I'm starting to like Sergio Moro on commentary, actually. He was saying the same thing on the commentary. Stay from the outside and continue what's been working and continue what has been piling up the points, and that's boxing, jabbing, throwing a right hand, the occasional left hook, and circling and moving from side to side, i.e. the lateral movement, and moving your head on the inside too. So I definitely thought he did a great job of moving his head on the inside. And I give Anthony Joshua credit for sticking to the game plan, staying tough mentally, and being disciplined. There's an old saying that the discipline to deal with an external threat starts with internal discipline. And I felt that Anthony Joshua did a tremendous job of not being drawn into that type of toe-to-toe exchanges, boxing and moving. So definitely there's something about this guy, his mental makeup to immediately exercise his rematch clause. Like he stated, he had to faced his friends after the loss. He stayed in New York for a couple of weeks, really confronted himself and his deficiencies that night that he sought to improve upon. And I give this guy all the credit in the world. So he definitely has my utmost respect. I would say next on the horizon could be the unification fight with, the rematch of the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury fight. He'll be fighting the winner of that. Now that's if all the sanctioning bodies, they don't have their mandatory. So now here's where boxing politics come into play now. All the belts, those sanctioning bodies, they're going to want Anthony Joshua to fight their mandatories. And if he doesn't fight them, they might strip him of the title. So while we're trying to unify the heavyweight championship of the world, I can see a situation where now there's going to be a fragment of the belts again. So we'll see how that plays out in terms of boxing politics. But Anthony Joshua, I give him all the credit in the world. You can tell that a weight was lifted off of his shoulders when he celebrated in the ring with his dad, his promoter, and you can tell weight was lifted off his shoulders, and clearly not only was this weighing on him, it was weighing on them. So much respect to you, Anthony Joshua. I think if we're going to do a quick early preview, if you were to fight the winner of the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury rematch, I think stylistically, Tyson Fury would be the better fight for him, or the better matchup for him, and here's why. In this rematch, Anthony Joshua was clearly cognizant of Andy Ruiz's punching power. That was clearly on his mind. That's why he wasn't going for broke. That's why he wasn't just in there trading on the inside. He knew that, okay, if I get hit by this guy again, I could potentially be hurt or be knocked out again. So now that goes into what Deontay Wilder always says. To beat me, a fighter has to be perfect for 12 rounds. I only need 5 to 10 seconds. And that is true with Anthony Joshua. I can see Anthony Joshua outboxing Deontay Wilder. Problem is, if Deontay Wilder lands something hard, and especially that straight right hand, I can see Anthony Joshua going to sleep. So that's why I think it's a better matchup for Tyson Fury. Now, not diminishing Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is a good boxer. Quick hands, he moves his head, everything. I think that'll be the better fight because Tyson Fury does hit hard. Yes, he does have knockout power, but he doesn't have that earth-shattering knockout power that a Deontay Wilder has. So I think that'll be a very entertaining boxing match between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So early preview, I would say that I think Tyson Fury would be the better matchup for Anthony Joshua to determine a unified heavyweight championship of the world. But we'll see. Hopefully boxing politics doesn't get in the way of ruining that particular fight. Andy Ruiz Jr., again, your complacency was not rewarded. How do you show up 18 pounds more in a fight that you could have had a longer training camp for? So that shows a level of complacency, a level of laziness, a level of reading your press clippings, you thinking that you have this fight won. So that's on you. You can claim for a rematch. We'll see. I don't know if the contract says that there's a rematch. That's why we had a rematch, because obviously Anthony Joshua invoked his rematch clause. So obviously we have that. I don't know if that was in the contract, so we'll see. Could it be a third fight? Yeah, you never know. And I think that Andy Ruiz has nobody to blame but himself. So not only I felt the weight was an issue, he did not deploy the same strategy that he did in the first fight. And I talked about this in the first fight. The one thing that I liked what he did was he was jabbing to Anthony Joshua's body, sticking him in the heart, jabbing to the heart, jabbing the chest area, and was taking the wind out of Anthony Joshua's sails. He didn't start really jabbing to the body until like the 8th round. At that point, the rounds was already in the bank for Joshua. So you're letting round after round after round after round go away, or I would say get away from you. But then now you want to jab to the body. Well, you want to deploy the same strategy that's working, but you've done it too late. And then he started to step on the gas pedal in those 8th and 9th rounds. But again, it's too little too late. You already lost a bunch of rounds. So you can't get frustrated in the 12th round and kind of motion Anthony Joshua and say, hey, come and fight me toe to toe and, stand here and trade with me. No, that's not what this is about. You had 12 rounds to handle your business, and you didn't do that, and the guy outboxed you. The guy moved side to side, and he used your extra weight. Really against you. So you have nobody to blame but yourself. So that'd be something that he would have to look in the mirror now and be honest with himself as to why he didn't perform up to standard that he did in the first fight when he shocked the world. So all the credit in the world, again, to Anthony Joshua. Now, Andy Ruiz, for now, has been relegated to the Sir Mix-a-Lot, Vanilla Ice, the famous one-hit wonders, and also one-hit wonders in the boxing world. Now, I talked about this at the start of our broadcast, where we have had fights where guys who have shocked the world and promptly lost the very next fight because of their complacency and their laziness. Well, let's start from the biggest upset in boxing history. James Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. We're not going to break that fight down. We all know that happened February 10th, 1990. And October 25th, 1990, Buster Douglas fought Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Now, Buster Douglas in that Tyson fight weighed 231 pounds. You can tell he was trimmed up a solid 231 pounds. When he fought Evander Holyfield, months later, he weighed 246 pounds. He weighed 15 pounds more than he did when he knocked out the previous unbeaten, chiseled Kid Dynamite Mike Tyson. He weighed 15 pounds more and was promptly knocked out in the third round by Evander Holyfield, who, by the way, was a, quote, blown up cruiserweight, who was coming up in weight. So, now obviously Holyfield had campaigned as a heavyweight and finally got his title shot, which is funny because they were already talks of holding the Tyson and Holyfield fight, but then Buster Douglas stepped in. That was a tune-up fight for Mike Tyson. Then when Buster Douglas knocked him out, then Holyfield ended up getting the title shot, and the rest is history. And you're never as well as Buster Douglas, because after that Holyfield rematch, or the Holyfield knockout, you really never heard anything out of Buster Douglas ever again. Another notable fight where a fighter wins and he becomes complacent was Riddick Big Daddy Bowe, who November of 1992 defeated Evander Holyfield, and the very next year lost to Evander Holyfield in the rematch. Now, if you remember anything about that rematch, that is the infamous fan man, where the guy in the middle of the 7th round, guy with a giant fan strapped to his back, descends into the open arena, lands on the ring ropes, and chaos breaks loose. What people tend to forget about that fight is that Riddick Bowe weighed 11 pounds more than he did in the first fight with Holyfield. And the first fight, folks, go watch that first fight if you haven't. That first fight versus Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe was one of the great heavyweight championship fights of all time. And what really makes that fight stand out is go to that 10th round. But Riddick Bowe won that fight fair and square, so they fought the rematch. Now, after Riddick Bowe won that fight, his promoter Rock Newman, trying to make Riddick Bowe a global icon, and for those of you who don't know, both Riddick Bowe and Mike Tyson, because Tyson was a global icon, but at the time Tyson was in prison, Riddick Bowe was a global icon, or trying to make Riddick Bowe a global icon. Took him all over the world, met the Pope. There's pictures and videos of him in Africa, and all that's well and good. But when you're traveling, you're constantly traveling, are you training the same way? Are you trained like the way you should? Are you getting the proper nutrition when you're traveling? And that's something that Riddick Bowe has always been known, especially when you go back and you look at old interviews with trainers, i.e. Tommy Brooks, who knew Riddick Bowe during his time in the amateurs and coming up through the ranks, that Riddick Bowe never had the greatest work ethic in the world. Very talented in terms of skills and boxing skills. Riddick Bowe, I think, was one of the most skilled heavyweights of all time. The problem with Riddick Bowe, he just did not have the work ethic. And when you have talent, but you don't have the work ethic, you can only get by for so long. So, and Riddick Bowe's another one, wasn't very disciplined in his eating habits, and clearly would show because he weighed 11 pounds more in the rematch to fighting Evander Holyfield. Now, you compare that with Holyfield. Holyfield, again, smaller heavyweight, blown up cruiserweight, fought a larger opponent in Riddick Bowe the first time. He realized, okay, I have to make some changes. He put on about a good 10 pounds of solid muscle. Now, the weight that Riddick Bowe put on was not muscle. The weight that Buster Douglas put on was not muscle. The weight that Andy Ruiz Jr. put on was not muscle. So, again, Anthony Joshua realized I need to lose 10 pounds in order to improve my stamina. Evander Holyfield puts on 10 pounds of solid muscle because, again, I'm fighting a bigger opponent and I need to get stronger and I need to get his attention. And Holyfield hired the late, great trainer Emanuel Stewart. And people, now I know Holyfield is known by mainstream boxing fans of his famous fights with Mike Tyson, the first fight, and obviously the infamous rematch when he had his ears bitten. But to me, in terms of boxing, I'm talking about in terms of boxing skills in the ring, adopting strategy and utilizing strategy and double jabbing and just pure the sweet science of what he called a professional prize fighter. That Riddick Bowe fight, the rematch, is I think Holyfield's best performance in the ring. I think that, and go back and watch that fight. Holyfield boxed beautifully. I mean, beautifully. Used Bowe's larger size as a handicap rather be an advantage for Bowe. So I give him all the credit in the world. But again, Riddick Bowe got lazy, he got complacent, he put on 11 pounds of muscle, lost the rematch, and if you go back, Riddick Bowe never won the heavyweight championship of the world. Again, that was his one and only title reign. And not but 4 years later, he's being beat up all around Madison Square Garden by Andrew Golota. So, again, when you have the talent, but you don't have the work ethic, that laziness goes hand in hand with it, you don't go very far. And Andy Ruiz Jr., again, to show up 18 pounds more, I'm going to flat out say it, that's a disgrace. That shouldn't happen. You're the heavyweight champion. You are the heavyweight champion of the world. You have a bunch of other fights on the horizon. And to put on that kind of weight, that's bad. And again, we just gave you the recent history of fighters doing this. But we definitely wanted to be balanced in our review of the fight. And definitely give all the credit in the world to Anthony Joshua. I do want to say this about the referee. Well, I'm not going to get on the referee too much. I thought the referee allowed a little bit of the horseplay inside, the ring with the holding and the hitting. And the referee didn't say anything. He kind of let Andy Ruiz kind of get away with too much stuff. But there is an old saying in boxing, you protect yourself and defend yourself at all times. But I thought the referee could have did a little bit better job by stopping some of the holding and the hitting. And let me say this about Saudi Arabia. I give Saudi Arabia credit because there's one thing people say in America, and I would say even applies worldwide: money talks. Saudi Arabia has issues in the past, but yet they are holding heavyweight championship of the world boxing matches and built stadiums like they built that arena just for that fight. They're holding boxing matches for the heavyweight championship of the world. You have World Wrestling Entertainment, who are holding events, a grand stage, and I would probably say for those of us who follow professional wrestling, and I'm a fan, obviously Q the Solo Monster, the WWE, their biggest show every year is WrestleMania. I would say now there's something called the Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. That show, if it's not equal to WrestleMania, has surpassed WrestleMania in terms of the WWE's biggest show every single year. Now, why is that significant? Because you can look up the whole journalist incident And people were upset about that, but again, money talks. So when money talks, you tend to forgive people's sins. So this kind of something interesting about Saudi Arabia. But other than that, was a great night in boxing. We have Anthony Joshua, who is now the two-time heavyweight champion in the world. So congratulations, Anthony Joshua, on a masterful performance, and we hope to see you in the future. We're definitely looking toward the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury rematch to see who's going to fight Anthony Joshua. So definitely great things on the horizon in the great sport of boxing. This is Chin Check Radio signing off.